And welcome back to Eldorado Park. And of course, we are here in the main as the community demands justice for Nathaniel Julies. And if you don't know by now, this, of course, a 16-year-old boy living with Down syndrome who was gunned down literally a stone's throw to my left. And his home, his family home, literally equidistant from me to my right. And we're speaking to the community this morning, giving a voice to this community that is, as I said earlier, a microcosm of what all coloured communities around South Africa are experiencing. The marginalisation, the silencing of these communities who feel that they have to survive on the fringes of society. And I must say, for me, this is a homecoming. Eldorado Park is where my children grew up. I have a home literally around the corner, down the road from here. I still own a home in this community. It's not just about drugs. It's not just about the lolly houses and crime that besets this community. There are so many other issues. It's multifaceted. And this morning we want the community members to tell us their story in their own voice. So Eldorado Park has, of course, over the years, not only given expression to grime and crime, but it has, of course, also given the community and South Africa at large many others to look up to. Comes to mind two Miss South Africas, Tansy Kutsia, proudly from Eldorado Park, and more recently, Liesl Laurie as well. Don Matera, and he, of course, received the Order of Baobab in gold from the South African government for his contribution to society, journalism, poetry, literature, and the like. And of course, so many others that come from this community. And we'll speak to some of the people. But I want to get into the community now. And one of the community leaders who was, of course, arrested during the protests that took place here last week, Majid Amin. But he, of course, because of his bail conditions, cannot speak to us about those actual events. But he will talk to us as a community leader about some of the other socioeconomic issues that this community has to deal with. Mr. Amin, thanks for your time this morning. So, Eldorado Park, we know about it, we think we know about it, but what is the real story here?
Thank you, Karima, for the opportunity. First of all, I just want to say to everybody, thank you for your prayers. It really helped. Another thing is, I also want to make it clear to you guys, I'm not under house arrest. That is something that I don't know who brought up. But to be quite honest with you, Karima, is we, the colours, as well as the Indians, have been marginalised for quite some time. And to be honest with you is that how far are we going to go? Because if you look at 1976, with the apartheid era, with the uprising, we fought for it as well. Where did it bring us? Nowhere. We were not white enough. And now we're not black enough for this color, for this regime. And we are saying now enough is enough. Marginalization stop. You look at Eldorado Park and surrounding areas. Look at the way the people are living here. Service delivery is not happening in our community. Where is all the money going to? Let's come back to the budget for our communities to be serviced. Nothing is happening. We are called drug addicts. We are lollipops. We are drunk ass and all that. But remember one thing, these colours, and as well as the Indians, have the qualification. And they can do whatever what they can do, we can do as well. We're not being given the opportunity because they're scared for us. This government is scared for us. That is the reason why.
Don't you think the language you use is equally problematic, Mr. Majid? Because in as much as you are othered by society, you are self-othering at the moment by talking about them and us. Whereas, isn't the objective for us to try and forge one collective South Africa?
That's correct. You're 100% correct. We have to do a one South Africa. I mean, if you look at it nicely, Karima, government thinks that they are the government. We, the people, shall govern. That is what it states. And we are government. They have to listen to us. But unfortunately, they don't listen to us. They feel that they're higher above us. It's wrong, Karima. I also mentioned to you, they are giving us threats now at the present moment. They're going to cut our electricity. The MMC was here in Eldorado Park. We explained him the situation. And
what is the situation? What is the situation?
The situation is here, Karima. This is the poor of the poorest community. Unfortunately, we can't afford the amounts that they want. They admitted to say the sliding scale is a problem. Now they're threatening our people to say that they are going to cut them. I just want to tell them one thing. that we are going to court. The mayor did receive a letter from Eldeka stating he must stop all cutting. Up till today, he never responded. So what does it tell you? We are still being marginalized. And I will speak out for the community, for service delivery that is not happening, buildings that are being taken, everything that is happening here. I will speak out. The corruption that is going on here, nobody's going to make me quiet. Karima, the way they locked me up, they made me stronger. That is what they did. And unfortunately, I'm happy for what I went through. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is Majid Amin, a member of the community, talking to us the struggles going on here. And again, not peculiar to Eldorado Park are those issues, because many communities in South Africa facing those very same problems of electricity cuts by the power utility, and of course the community's inability to actually pay for those services because of unemployment and other social ills. Stacey May Lee, and she is of course the spin queen, and many people know her as such. Young person here from Eldorado Park. What's it like being young, growing up in these conditions?
Growing up in Elders is like growing up in any other community, the same like growing up in Florida. It's all about what you make of yourself and what you make of your circumstances. People can say people from Eldorado Park are all on drugs and we're all gangsters, but that's not true, because people from Florida are on the exact same thing. So it's all about what you do with your life and what you make of your circumstances. It's not about where you come from, it's about who you are as a person.
And looking at other young people, because I always say, when we talk about those who have basically made a name for themselves, who've managed to get somewhere, they are the exception, because the majority of people around here are not able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Yeah. What do you think the reason is for that?
I think it would be that we don't have enough support from government. Speaking from my own experiences, my parents never had enough money to push me towards doing something more than just spinning. I wanted to be in drifting, but drifting is so expensive. Spinning is the cheapest sport, so we went into the cheapest form of motorsport to try and do something and show the world that we can become something coming from Eldos. And I feel like people should just take the little opportunity and push towards it and push forward and become something and make something of themselves. So it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are, it's what you make of your opportunity.
So glad to hear that, Stacey Lee, and hopefully many young people listening, watching, can actually take what you say and pull themselves up and do something with their lives, because as you say, it's not about the circumstances. Many South Africans come from these very same socioeconomic conditions, but we push through. And I know Eusebius McKaiser will have something to say about that, because it's not just about agency. There's so much more that determines what we become and who we become ultimately. But I want to go now to Mr. Albany. Mr. Albany.
Sakina and everyone, all I want to say, we've got to save the children. And all life matters. Not only one race's life, but everybody's life matters. And let us take care of our children.
Thank you so much.
We need divine intervention for those that are on drugs or whatever the case may be. Let us help them and pray for them.
Thank you, Mr. Albany. And that's a very real problem around here as we arrive. So many young people on drugs. And something needs to be done about that. But we don't quite have the answers. And I don't think we should actually think that we can solve all the problems here today. What we can do, though, is perhaps speak to solutions and also highlight what the plight is more keenly. We're going to turn now to mothers in this community. And we have a few of them joining us here this morning. Mothers who've lost their sons to police brutality. And Eusebius said earlier on, the thing about Nathaniel Julies is that he has found sympathy because he lived with Down syndrome. He had a disability of sorts. But the reality is that, unfortunately, for so many communities like this one, children, young people getting shot and killed by those who are meant to serve and protect them is more every day than you care to imagine. And first up, I'm going to speak to Christabel Busson, who's going to tell us her story about her son's killing. Christabel, thanks for your bravery and for sharing your story with us. It's 3.5 years, you told me yesterday.
Yes.
And if you can just briefly tell us what happened to your son.
So, Sakina, my son was killed in my yard, also by an off-duty drunken cop. First, his brother, the metro cop, came, jumped over my wall. When they couldn't do anything, they found the police officer who works for crime intelligence. He came back, they ripped off my roller shutter, and they shot my son through the gate. He still entered my yard. I don't know what he wanted to do, but I couldn't even help my son. And their reason is they protected their mother. I've never even seen their mother before they killed my son. You know, it's really sad that a 16-year-old had to lose his life by someone who was supposed to protect him, just like my son. And like I told you yesterday, this is about Nathaniel. But we're here to support the family because we know exactly what they're going through. And then I also have Auntie Connie here. Her son was killed like it's almost 5 years ago. She doesn't get any joy from SABC. She's actually one of the mothers who was told to go look for the perpetrators and the murderers. So, you see, we as the community, we don't even trust SABC.
And so sorry to hear that. And my heart breaks for mothers especially, because there's nothing that compares to the death of a child. And it's something that unfortunately you would have had to live through to understand. And unfortunately, all too many colored and black mothers have to live through this reality. Ma'am, thanks so much for your time as well. Please tell us your story.
My story is my son was gunned down in House Street.
Please just bring the mic closer.
Past 5 in broad daylight. And up till now, I'm still waiting for the ballistics report. Every time I go to the police station, they say the ballistics report didn't come yet. So I don't get closure because I don't know who killed him. I don't know why. I don't know nothing. Nobody's coming back to me. They were only at my house twice. So I live with that every day, wanting to know who, why. Just a little bit of closure, but the cops are not.
So
they say I must look for witnesses and I must bring them to the police station. If I find somebody, they can tell them. But nobody wants to talk because these guys they had clots over their heads, so you couldn't see them. But it's broad daylight. Past 5, it's a summer, it was in October. It was a nice summer day. Nobody saw nothing. So I've got to live with it every day.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And we have another mother, Mrs. Williams, as well, with a picture of her son. Ma'am, please tell us your story.
Afrikaans.
Jy mag maar.
Goeiemôre. Ek is Linda Williams. My seun Jermaine Williams, hom vriend het hom doodgemaak en begrawe in 'n hotel. Ek kon nie hom liggaam na 'n maand en 'n half. En liggaam was gedecompose. En tot vandag is hy vry. Na 3 jaar het ek nog niks tot justice gekry van hom nie. En die man wat hom vermoord het, ry nog elke dag verby my huis.
Maar hoe so? Wat sê die polisie? Hoekom is hy nog op vrye voet?
En nou is die saak in Eldorado, want hulle het hom daar uitgegrou. En niks gebeur. Is nou al 3 jaar. Ek sukkel nog steeds vir justice.
En elke dag stuur hulle jou net van pille toe
Ek
pos.
is nog glad moeg. Ek gaan nie eens weer polisiestasie doen.
En wat sal julle as moeders wil hê moet vandag, as daar een ding is wat ons vandag hier kan wegvat, wat sal julle graag wil sien?
Niemand kan ons pyn wegvat nie. Dis 'n diep pyn. Niemand kan dit wegvat nie. As die law ons nie kan help nie, dis baie seer. Maar ek wil net graag hê, want is my kind se vriend, Hy moet my net kom sê, waarom het hy my kind doodgemaak? Want die ma het dit geshield, tot nou nog shield sy dat.
And just to translate what Mrs. Williams is saying, her son was killed by his friend and buried in Ennerdale, which is another colour township about 25 kilometers or so from Eldorado Park. He was buried there, and his decomposed body was discovered about a month and a half later. And she says, perpetrator was never arrested, and the police keep sending her from pillar to post without any closure. And you can see, you can feel the hurt here among these mothers. It's palpable where they are being let down by law enforcement. And yesterday, Christabel was saying to me, for example, they've now resorted to going to AfriForum and Gerrie Nel to try and assist them to actually get the police and other law enforcement agencies to do their jobs. That's all they're asking for. Not special treatment. Just do the job that you are meant to do so that those who are in the wrong are brought to book. So those are the stories of the mothers. And I'm going to speak to other community leaders and community members, because this broadcast this morning, this special broadcast from Eldorado Park, is about giving a voice to a community that feels otherwise marginalized and voiceless on the fringes of society. Ma'am, you can tell us your name and what it is that you want to share with us.
My name is Hendrika Chesman. My son was murdered 1998. It's now 21 years ago. There was no justice for him. The police only came once to my house, and the case was closed because they say no witness, no case. Up till today, and the day before the funeral, those guys came and threatened us to say they won't give any statements, and I heard nothing. It's now 20 years that my son was murdered.
I can only say I am so sorry, but I guess sorry is not enough at this point. More needs to be done. There needs to be more attention given and justice brought, not just for Nathaniel Julies, but for all of these mothers who are crying. As I say, they're not asking for special treatment. They're just asking for justice to prevail. And there has to be more attention brought to giving justice to poor communities. It cannot be that it is only those, the well-heeled in society, who are able to buy justice, because that's what it's sounding like at the moment. Let's hear from Peter Rafferty, ward councillor, leader in this community. Mr. Rafferty, you've heard the plight of these mothers. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I used to harass you. I had your number and I made sure you worked for your money. But I'm hoping that other community members are holding you to account as well, because there are so many ills here. And as a ward councillor, you get paid to tend to the needs of this community. So what do you have to say, listening to what people are saying this morning?
No, I think frustrations are justified. We can't just play it down as it's not existing. But also to a certain extent that at times your hands are tied. Right now, the flats that we're looking at, there are no contractors. Contractors were supposed to be appointed in February this year. There are sewers running, windows broken, electricity problems at the flats that cannot be fixed by City Power or anybody else, or Joburg Water for that matter. It has to be from the department themselves. And this is sometimes the frustrations that we have to go through. Just down the road we have Kersidorp, where bulk of the sewers, I mean, some people can't even open their back doors to use the backyard because the sewers are knee high. So we've been pleading with MEC Maile as well in terms of assisting us with that. And to date, none of my emails have been responded to.
But why is it not happening, Councillor Rafferty? Because, and I don't expect you to be sending emails to the council. I expect you to go there. You sit in those chambers. I expect you to pull him, kicking and screaming, to come and see what it is that the community has to live through.
We've done that. Next to me, I'm standing also with another councillor, also chairperson, and he will tell you, I leave no stone unturned. I'll say something If there's something that I need to say, I will say it. I will stand up and I will say, and I'll not be quiet. But at the same time, the professionalism also in terms of the administration and the officials, not all of them. Some of them are brilliant. You can pick up the phone now, give a call, and you'll have assistance immediately. But over and above that, from a community level also we have a responsibility as well. And we can't shy away from that responsibility. I mean, if we talk about some of our areas, we dump literally in front of someone else's yard. You clean your yard to dump in front of someone else, and it's some of the responsibilities that we as society have to take. The other thing also, listening to all the other stories, is that we need to go back to basics. Where your child was my child and I am my brother's keeper. Because if you hear now, if no one wants to come out and be witnesses to something that you have observed, then you are just as guilty as the person that has done it. And this is what has been happening all this time, where cases are opened, nothing is being done, and you have mothers feeling the way that they are feeling today. So it's for us, and I think this week has been an eye-opener. I said, yes, it's a sad moment for us as a community, having lost one of our own through people that's supposed to be protecting us. But by the community uniting, because this is where it starts, we need to unite as a community. Above politics, this election is next year. But even after that, all political parties need to be at because you have set yourself out to say, I'm putting myself out there because I want to serve. And once you are from the same community, I think from my side, or maybe I'm naive, is to say that all of us must hold hands. Because at least you have more voices than one. If there's one person saying something, but can you imagine all political parties, like what has happened this week, saying the very same thing? That makes impact, and that is where we need to be.
And I think very important points being raised there by Councillor Peter Rafferty. In as much as we are highlighting the plight of the community equally has a responsibility to uphold their end of the bargain. And it's ultimately up to the communities to reclaim their spaces. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to descend from heaven to take back these streets for you. It's ultimately going to be up to the individual members of communities. And we are coming to you from Eldorado Park this morning, and we'll continue bringing these stories and hearing the voices of this community and coloured communities, broadly speaking, that feel marginalised and that feel invisible. Right now, time for news headlines. It's back to Leanne.